Hello and welcome to a quick tour of the OmniRota system. What we'll do is we'll take you through some of the most important functions that are generic throughout the system. So we'll show you the staff details and the important factors that are recorded in there, how to add and edit leave directly into the system, how to manage leave if the staff are using the app or their own login to create leave requests, and how to manage leave overall, how you go about adding school holidays, public holidays, particular dates when the surgery are closed, semi-regular meetings. We'll go show you how you can ensure that a particular individual doesn't get allocated a session on a particular day. Let's say they need to drop off the kids after school and so can't work in that a particular session that afternoon. I'll take you quickly through how the rota rules are set up and how it processes those rules to create a rota. Show you how to actually create a rota. We'll go through editing a rota, printing or emailing a rota to your staff, managing rota changes. We'll go through a few reports, and then we'll have a look at the support system. So if we go to the staff list, click on that, we'll see the list of all our staff. Now this is the order that they'll be printed on the rota, so this can be changed. That's done in settings, which I'll show you later. So if we have a look at Arthur Abel, so we can enter in here. We will normally do this for you, but if you would like to enter your own staff details or change, the critical areas of the staff type, we use that quite a lot for different reporting functions and different rules. The maximum number of sessions per week, that's used for apportioning sessions fairly, as well as limiting the number of sessions a person will do in a week. This could be also set as hours rather than maximum sessions. Default room, if you're using the room booking facility, that's the room that they'll be placed in by default. The email, that is used to allow them to log into the system themselves and to email their rota. This is that print order I told you about before. Start date is important. They won't appear in the rota until after that start date. If it's left blank, they'll appear in the rota at any time. Similarly with the finish date, if somebody leaves your practice halfway through a rota, if you put in the finish date, none of the rules will be applied after that particular date. So that's what you do if somebody does leave the practice. You can also, there are reports and rules based on people's gender. You can change what's displayed in the rota and the colour for that particular staff member if you'd like to. Once a person has left the organisation and following the next couple of rotas, you can then archive them. That will store them away, but it means you can bring them back at a later date. Or of course you can simply delete the record. So we'll have a look at if we're editing and adding leave directly into the system rather than having the staff do it themselves. We do that from here. You can click on that there to add new leave, but if we have a look at an existing one, so we have each of the different leave types. You can create new leave types from date to the end date. Are they having the entire day off, or is it just part day off? The number of sessions that are to be deducted from their annual accrual, and then we'll save and close that. So that can be edited. You can see here there's one that's been applied for online by this individual, and it's yet to be approved. We have our leave summary here that shows us for this accrual period the number of sessions that they've taken out of the number that they were allowed, or out of their annual allowance, and the number remaining. We can set this up for each of these different types. Login details, as I mentioned before, that's the email address. If you set that up, the individual will be able to access their own version of the system. And we have a separate video which is available under help that you can see how that's done. This maximum sessions, that's used very rarely, but it's allows us to ensure that, say for example, in a care home, that we fairly balance the number of AM sessions and PM sessions, or evening or and day shifts for our staff members when the system is creating the rota. But as I said, that's rarely used. If you are a care home, then that will probably be of assistance. And then we have our rules for our staff members. So these are the fixed rules. This is something that this individual will do uh, every time unless they're on leave or it's a bank holiday. So every Wednesday, Arthur Abel will be off. And then we have we can also put in meetings and other minor clinics, other sessions that an individual holds regularly. And then there are no other rules unless for example, if that person's off, we may have a rule then to cover them. So these are sessions that are applied regardless of any other rules. And then we have our staff availability. Now, these are the different session types that Arthur Abel will be allocated based on our session rules. So we have for each of our rules, we can have specific sub-rules. I'll explain all of those a bit later on. So anyway, there we have our staff details. Now, if we have a look at how leave is managed within the system, under settings we have leave type. Now, these are we've obviously established a number that will be used by almost every practice and every organisation. However, within each of these, there's a whole bunch of different details, and the functionality in here is quite powerful, but most organisations will probably not use the full functionality that we have in here. We've got certain things like we can share allowance, take allowances from different types, session types, and different types of leave. Now, that all won't make a lot of sense, but for example, we could set up a session of time off in lieu as a leave type, and we could link that to a session type days worked in lieu. Well, days worked, for example, then we'll then get a balance of days worked and days that time off in lieu taken off, and it won't impact on any other of our other leave details. So if you would like us to take more control over your leave system, we can certainly do that. But the things that you'll typically be using once you've set up the leave, or as I said, the leave will be set up for you. We have the different accrual periods. So it'll typically be January to December, but you can have different accrual periods for each individual staff member, for each type of leave, and this is all set up here. So when we set the system up originally, or when you set it up originally, you'll want to put in their annual leave quota for this period and any carried over from the previous year. Now, once you've saved that, that is then managed within the system. So you don't, other than setting up a new accrual period for the following year, you don't really need to revisit this. So once we've set all that up, the staff members can either apply for leave via their login or via the app, or you can add leave, as I said before, from adding within the staff details. So that's very simple. But once, let's say we're looking at the leave that's been applied for. Let me just see here. So if we go into manage leave, so we can see here's that study leave that Arthur Abel has applied for. Now we can either approve or reject that. If we reject that, we can give them reasons which will be sent to them. What we can also do here is we can view the actual leave itself, and we can also see if we approve this, what will actually happen to this leave, to the rota itself. So there'll be no duty on that day. If we approve that leave, we'll find ourselves with no duty on that particular day. Now, on that note, if we look at the rota itself, if somebody takes leave after the rota has been created, there's no need to edit the rota. What we can do is simply add the leave to the staff member. Let's say we add it for what's the first week, the 12th to the 16th of February. the rota. Now that needs to, we can either click on show rota or we can press the F5 button to refresh the screen. Now what that will do, this will show you where you've got any exceptions that need to be corrected. Now if we have a look at how leave is managed within the system, under settings we have leave type. Now these are all we've obviously established a number that will be used by almost every practice and every organisation. However, within each of these there's a whole bunch of different details, and the functionality in here is quite powerful, but most organisations will probably not use the full functionality that we have in here. We've got certain things like we can share allowance, take allowances from different types, session types and different types of leave. Now that all won't make a lot of sense, but for example we could set up a session of time off in lieu as a leave type. We could link that to a session type days worked in lieu. Well, days worked, for example, then we'll then get a balance of days worked and then days that time off in lieu taken off, and it won't impact on any other of our other leave details. So if you would like us to take more control over your leave system, we can certainly do that. But the things that you'll typically be using once you've set up the leave, or as I said, the leave will be set up for you. We have the different accrual periods. So it'll typically be January to December, but you can have different accrual periods for each individual staff member, for each type of leave, and this is all set up here. So when we set the system up originally, or when you set it up originally, you'll want to put in their annual leave quota for this period and any carried over from the previous year. Now once you've saved that, that is then managed within the system. So you don't, other than setting up a new accrual period for the following year, you don't really need to revisit this. So once we've set all that up, the staff members can either apply for leave via their login or via the app, or you can add leave, as I said before, from adding within the staff details. So that's very simple. But once, let's say we're looking at the leave that's been applied for. Let me just see here. So if we go into manage leave, so we can see here's that study leave that Arthur Abel has applied for. Now we can either approve or reject that. If we reject that, we can give them reasons which will be sent to them. So if we look at how the system works with public holidays, days that people can and can't work, school terms, for example. So let's have a look at bank holidays first. You access from the settings menu, and they can be added directly from there. Towards the end of each year, we'll actually email, there'll be a function here that says import public holidays. We will send them to you each year. So if your public holidays are not appearing, this is where you'll find them. These school holidays here, these are added just for appearance on one of the reports, which is a leave planner. We'll be adding new rules and functionality with those, but that's not there at the moment. So what we're doing, for school holidays, for example, we've added in fixed dates of school holidays, but this could be for anything. It could be when the practice is closed on a semi-regular date. So where we want to apply a rule to these fixed dates rather than go through and make individual changes to people. So, for example, on school holidays, Arthur is not available for an early session because he's got to pick up his kids from school. Or drop off his kids at school, I should say. So he's not available to do an early. Now let's say Arthur had to do a specific meeting on a specific date. This would be a fixed rule. So let's create a new fixed rule. The session type will be meeting. Now we've created all the session types for you, but you can add any new session types you like by simply going into the session type list and adding from there. So there's our meeting. It's going to be, let's say, it's a PM meeting only, and it's going to be on a specific date. There are a number of different fixed rules that can be used with different parameters. Typically we'll set those up for you, but this is one that's quite easy. If you're adding a fixed date on a particular date, or of course a particular date could be every Tuesday, but let's say on the 11th of April, so we select the date and then click on add to add it into our list here. Arthur has got a meeting. Let's say he has another meeting, but it's not a PM meeting, it's an AM meeting. So what we can do is we can just copy that rule. Meeting AM on particular date. Let's edit that date so we can remove it or update it. So if we select, so that date, update, that's now the 15th of May. He's got an AM meeting. Now if he has another PM meeting, you don't add a new rule, you simply edit the selected dates. Don't add more selected dates, edit the existing ones. So 11th and 23rd, so he's got 2 PM meetings. Now something else that may crop up is if, for example, we've got Arthur's unable to do early during school holidays. Let's say there's another day that he's unable to do that. What we can do is we can add a staff availability rule, and we say select dates again. We say not available. So we can say that on the 19th of June, Arthur is unavailable for an early session. So we can work around the dates at any time. Also, you can set fixed rules up from within the rota itself, which I will show you later on. So let's have a look now at rota sessions and the rota rules, and how the rota is actually created. So if we have a look, say for example, these are all of our session types from the session list. If we have a look at, say, child health, so this is a very simple one. By the way, you can change all the colours and how it appears on the rota, the display text on the rota. So, and if you want to add a new session type, feel free. You can just create a new session type, just save or add new, or from the session list. You can just click on there, or you can copy an existing one. So if we have a look at child health, so this is a very simple one. Every second Thursday, Brian Brown is going to do a morning child health session. And all the rules that we have, so under our staff availability, Arthur and Brian are both able to do it. And under our session rules, we'll see if Brian hasn't filled it because he's not in, it'll fill it with Arthur. So that's just checking to see if the session's not been already filled, then let's fill it. Now, the duty is typically a lot more complicated, so that's a very simple rule, but as you'll see here, we can cover just about any type. We've yet to come across a rota that we can't actually manage in one way or another. So if we have a look at duty for our staff, we've got a bunch of staff availability rules that are also applying to duty. So we're saying Doris, for example, so look at we've got dozens and dozens and dozens of different staff availability rules, and for each of those we've got different parameters that we can set, so we can cover just about anything at all. So this says here it's a dynamic rule. What that means is that as it creates the roster, it looks at how these people are being allocated as the rota is being created, but you don't need to worry about that. So for each individual, we can add a bunch of staff availability rules, which will impact on how they're actually placed in the rota. And then we have our session rules. So for the Friday PM duty, we don't want anyone to do it before leave, but we want to rotate that so that we're going to allocate that separately because we want to ensure that there's as long a gap as possible. So now for session rules, we have even more available rules. So you can see there are lots and lots and lots and lots, and for each of those we pass different parameters. So as I was saying, it's very unlikely we won't be able to manage your rota. And then after allocating the PM, we then allocate the rest of the week. So this will show us all of our rules. So they're all our fixed rules. Not very many for a small rota like this. Our staff availability, who can do what and what limitations based on that. The session rules, so we're allocating the duty first, then we're allocating the duty support, then we're allocating early. So for each of our different session types, we've got session rules, and the order that these are allocated is critical. So for example, if we were allocating any session, well, here we go, we've got this child health session, so we probably should move that up, because if Brian's not available to do, then Arthur will want to do it. So this child health session should probably be even allocated first, but that's how we create the rota rules for you. Then we have a look at any additional rules. So in here, these are to do with rooms, and so we can replace room, change number of appointments that are being allocated for each particular session type. These are rules that are after the rota has been created. And then we have our exceptions. So these are the things we want to check for. We want to ensure that if there's no duty AM, that's a big problem, and we want to know about that. So, and the weighting here is based on the more important the exception, the higher its weighting, and so we can iterate a rota dozens of times and reduce the number of errors until we've got it as low as possible. But we can check for just about anything if an individual hasn't been allocated a room. So under exceptions, I've got all these different types, and again we can pass all sorts of parameters of those. So once all the rules are in there and all the dates, we're ready to create a rota. So we select that from in here. So the start date, the number of weeks, all very self-explanatory. Maximum errors, we can set it up so the rota is iterated, so it'll create as many times as is required until it gets the best possible outcome. It will almost always have set this up for you, but if you've got any questions about that, you can please feel free to ask us about that one. Now, if you're added a new individual or somebody's details have changed, you can actually create a rota for just one individual, for a select number of people. So let's say we select to create a rota just for the locum. What it'll do is it'll fill all of the fixed sessions that they do. It'll leave every other session blank, but for every fixed session that they do, it will change their details, but it won't change the rest of the rota. So this is to be used if you've got a new staff member who's come in whilst the rota has already been created. But typically you'll be creating it for all staff. And so we just click on create rota, and off it'll go and create it. Now, once that's been done, of course, you've got your rota here. Now, there are a number of settings that we have as well for your rota. So they're all in here, and again, we'll have set these up for you. The only one that you probably do need to know about, and in fact that you will for sure, is if you get a new staff member and you want to change the order you can do that here. So if we have a look at the rotor itself, obviously you can edit it very easily. So if we just click on that particular slot, and let's say we want Arthur to do duty on that day for whatever reason. So we'll say Arthur is going to do duty. He'll be in room 1. Now, where it says here save, this is a fixed rule. That means that's only ever used if you're going to recreate the rotor. So if you've gone through and created a rotor, but you see, oh, I want to actually fix these people in these certain slots, you can do that here. If you save it as a fixed rule, what that will then do is in the staff record, in fact, I'll show you what it'll do. So if we save as fixed rule, and we go and have a look at Arthur's staff record, you'll see it's now a fixed rule with all of those details. So if the rotor is created again for that period, you don't, that's if you don't want to lose any changes you've made, but you need to recreate the rotor. So that functionality is all in there. We've set it up so that it highlights, and there's a little flag there to show you that we've made that change, but that can be set in in the system settings, in the rotor settings. You can change it for an entire day. So if we select, say, those 3 people in the AM, oops, they're meant to be doing a meeting. So we can click on that and it'll update those people. Where it says he notifies staff by email, phone, that's if they've got the app, or if they've got an email address, it will send them an email to say you've changed their rotor details. So you can do it for the whole month. Just one slot. There are a number of different well, first you select the date and the number of weeks you want to show. You can back up the rotor from here as well. If you back that up, give it a name. Means that you can restore that particular rotor from rotor backups. Now there are a number of different views. If you want to show the rotor for just less than all the particular staff, you can limit that there. There's all the different rotor views. So if we have a look at here's a room view rather than a staff view. But as you can see, there are quite a number of those. We can show the different. So if we've got here, we want to show the room. So that's showing which room they're in on the particular rotor. Can show the notes. This is for your exceptions. So those are if we set up the exceptions for you. So exceptions also include any notes. So that's just telling us some information that we want to know. Unfortunately, those two did more than the 2 p.m. on Fridays and 2 Mondays. It may be inevitable because of the fact that people have taken leave, but we can then edit that, or we can recreate the rotor and reduce that number even further. So that's those are in red, give us an error value of 2. If we can recreate the rotor and reduce that further. So there are different displays. We can then how you print it, or so print to a PDF file or email to your staff. But we can also send it to your Outlook calendar, to your iPhones. We can export directly to Introdoc 24/7. We're actually speaking with some other organisations, so we're very much hoping that this will be vastly expanded over the next few months, and also there'll be methods that the system will actually just upgrade the other particular product behind the scenes, so you won't even know it's done. But so you can click on print download, and that'll save it as a PDF file for you to then print out. Now there are many different reports in the system, and reports are best just to go in there and have a look at them and play around with them. You can't cause any damage, obviously, if you're just creating a report. But some that well worth looking at is the leave planner. So here this can be printed out and presented to each of your staff members. So we select the period, the starting date, sorry, the number of months, which staff we want in it. We can also, if we wanted to, say, let's throw in there and say we want to show admin on this as well. So it's going to show us when people are doing their admin sessions. But there are other reports that enable you, the sessions calendar. You can print out reports, say for a duty calendar or any type of calendar you like. Another report that is frequently used is this total sessions report. Now this is one that gives you all your statistical analysis. So if we've created one already, so select the start date and the end date. Save and show report. Now again, with this report, the best thing is just go in there and have a play with it. So what we selected the duty, the WTE, so we've got the percentage of or their proportion of the practice that they encompass. So that's the number of sessions that they should be doing. So we can see over that period of time, people have done pretty much close to the number of duty sessions that they should have done based on their WTE. You show us the number of Monday visits they've done that period, extended number of tutorials, but it's a report that you create yourself. So go and have a play through there, and you'll see we've typically created reports for you. But you can then add any additional ones. You can download it as Excel as well, so you can then take that data and then import it directly into a spreadsheet. So the final thing that I'd like to show you is simply the support. So within support, if you click on add a ticket, what type of category? Now typically it'll be a rule change. It doesn't really matter to us too much which of these you select. Let's say rule change. And we say the subject is new doctor starting in March. And then if you send us Dr. Smith anyway, and all the particular details, if you send that through to us and any attachments that you might have, it means that we're based on 3 continents, and one of us is almost always working, but we'll certainly get back to you within 24 hours. And we've got our own console which shows us all the support tickets as they come in, so that means that's the way to contact us via this support ticket. Okay, thank you.